The house on Maple Street was more than brick and mortar to me. It was a living memory, a vessel of my life's joys and sorrows. Every creak in the floorboards whispered stories of my late husband, Robert, laughing as he chased our son, Daniel, through the halls. Every scuff on the walls held echoes of birthday parties, quiet evenings by the fireplace, and the day we brought Daniel home from the hospital. A tiny bundle of hope. I'm Evelyn, 70 years old, and that house was my heart's anchor. But anchors can be ripped free, and mine was torn away by the one person I thought would cherish it as I did me son. Daniel wasn't always the man he became. As a boy, he was bright, curious, always sketching little inventions in his notebook or helping his father tinker in the garage. Robert and I raised him with love, teaching him the value of hard work and family. But somewhere along the way, the world got its hooks into him. It started small late nights at college, a few too many drinks, a poker game with friends. I didn't see the signs then. I thought he was just young, finding his way. By the time he was 30, though, the boy I knew was slipping, replaced by a man who chased quick thrills and easy money. Gambling became his god, and it demanded everything. I was widowed at 60, left with the house and a modest savings Robert and I had built together. Daniel was already spiraling, but I clung to hope. I'd invite him over, cook his favorite pot roast, and try to talk sense into him. You're better than this, Danny, I'd say, my voice soft but firm. He'd nod, promise to change. And for a while, he'd seem to try. But the promises were hollow, like the sound of wind through the empty lot where our neighbor's house once stood. I didn't know how deep his addiction ran until it was too late. One evening, 2 years ago, Daniel showed up at my door, his eyes bloodshot, his clothes rumpled. He said he needed money just alone. He swore to settle a debt. Mom, I'm in trouble, he said, his voice breaking. If I don't pay, they'll hurt me. My heart twisted. What mother could say no? I gave him $5, 000 from my savings, every penny I could spare, and he hugged me, tears in his eyes. I'll pay you back, Mom. I swear. I believed him because I wanted to, because he was my son. Months passed, and the money never came back. Instead, Daniel grew distant. Calls went unanswered. Visits stopped. I'd drive by his apartment, see the lights off, and wonder where he was. Then came the lettera cold, official notice from the bank. The house, my house, was in foreclosure. Daniel had forged my signature, taken out a second mortgage, and gambled it all away. The debt was insurmountable. The payments missed. The bank was taking everything. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Daniel once drew his childish sketches, and wept. Not for the house, but for the betrayal. The eviction notice came like a death sentence. I had 30 days to leave. Daniel wouldn't answer my calls, but I heard through a friend he was telling people I had mismanaged the money, that I had lost the house. The lie cut deeper than the loss. My neighbors, my friends, looked at me with pity, some with doubt. I was 68, alone, and about to lose the only home I'd ever known. But something inside me, a stubborn spark, refused to break. I'd built that life with Robert. I'd raised Daniel there. I wasn't going to let it end like this. I moved into a small apartment, a cramped box that smelled of mildew, and started piecing things together. I wasn't educated in finance, but I was resourceful. I spent hours at the library, poring over legal books and real estate laws. I learned about foreclosure auctions, about loopholes and oversights. The bank had mishandled the paperwork. Daniel's forgery was sloppy, and they hadn't verified it properly. There was a chance, a slim one, to fight back. I didn't have money for a lawyer, but I had time and grit. I filed motions, attended hearings, and learned to speak the language of the courts. The judge, a stern woman with kind eyes, saw something in me. She gave me a chance to contest the foreclosure. Meanwhile, Daniel's lies spread. He'd moved to a new city, telling anyone who'd listened that I was senile, that I'd squandered our family's wealth. The betrayal burned, but it also fueled me. I wasn't just fighting for the house now. I was fighting for the truth. I tracked down his old gambling buddies, men with hard faces and guilty eyes. One, a man named Tony, cracked under my questions. "He's in deep. Evelyn," he said. "He used your house as collateral for a game he couldn't win." Tony gave me names, dates, proof. I kept it all, building a case not just for the house, but against the son who'd broken my trust. The auction day came. The house was listed for a fraction of its worth, a casualty of the bank's rush to clear its books. I stood in the crowd, my heart pounding, clutching a single-dollar bill. It was a long shot, a legal maneuver I'd found in an obscure real estate law. If no one bid, and I could prove the bank's negligence, I could reclaim the title for a nominal fee. The auctioneer called out, his voice echoing over the empty lot. No one raised a hand. The bank's representative, flustered, fumbled the paperwork. My motion was on file, my evidence clear. The gavel fell. For $1, the house was mine again. I didn't celebrate. Not yet. The house was empty, its warmth gone. But I had a plan. Daniel needed to face what he'd done not just to me, but to himself. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing it for redemption, for the boy I'd raised to be better. The next step was the hardest, but I was ready. The house stood silent, its windows dark, like eyes that had forgotten how to see. I moved back in with nothing but a suitcase and a folding chair, the air thick with dust and memories. Every corner held a ghost Robert's laughter, Daniel's small hand in mine, the life we'd built. But I wasn't here to dwell. I was here to rebuild, not just the house, but the truth. My son had spun a web of lies, and I was going to unravel it, thread by thread. I started small, cleaning the house room by room. The physical work kept my mind sharp, my purpose clear. As I scrubbed the floors, I thought about Daniel. He was 35 now, living in a cheap motel 2 towns over. According to Tony, I could have hated him, but hate was too heavy a burden for my old bones. Instead, I felt a deep, aching sorrow. I'd failed him somewhere along the way, hadn't I? Or had the world failed us both? I didn't have answers, but I knew one thing: letting him run from his mistakes wasn't love. Love was holding him accountable, even if it broke my heart. I reached out to Daniel, leaving voicemails he never returned. "Come home, Danny," I said. "We need to talk." Silence was his only reply. So I turned to the community, the people he'd lied to. I invited old neighbors over, served them coffee in chipped mugs, and told them the truth. I showed them the bank notices, Tony's testimony, the court documents. Some believed me right away, their faces softening with sympathy. Others were skeptical, their trust in me shaken by Daniel's stories. I didn't blame them. Lies are easier to swallow than betrayal. Word spread. People started talking not just about the house, but about Daniel. I didn't want him vilified. I wanted him seen. I wanted him to feel the weight of what he'd done. Meanwhile, I worked on the house. I couldn't afford much, but I bartered with neighbors a batch of my homemade jam for a repaired window, a knitted scarf for a fixed door. The house wasn't just mine. It was ours, the community's, a symbol of resilience. They helped because they saw me fighting, not just for myself, but for something bigger. One day, a letter arrived from Daniel. No return address, just his scrawled handwriting. "Mom, I'm sorry," it read. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I'll make it right." My hands trembled as I read it. Part of me wanted to believe him, to run to him and hold him like I did when he was small. But I'd learned my lesson. Words weren't enough. I tucked the letter away and kept working. I hired a private investigator with the last of my savings, not to spy, but to understand. The investigator, a gruff man named Carl, tracked Daniel's movements. He was deep in debt, bouncing between poker tables and shady loan sharks. Carl found evidence of more lies. Daniel had told his new friends I'd disowned him, that I'd gambled the house away myself. The audacity of it stung, but it also clarified things. Daniel wasn't just running from his debts. He was running from himself. I decided to confront him, not in anger, but with truth. I sent him a letter, care of the motel, asking him to meet me at the house. I didn't expect him to show, but I had to try. While I waited, I kept digging. Carl found a paper trail, casino records, loan agreements, even a forged check with my name on it. It was enough to press charges. But that wasn't my goal. I wanted Daniel to see the damage, to face it, to choose a different path. The day of the meeting came, and I sat in the living room, the folding chair creaking under me. The house was still bare, but it was clean, a blank slate. I heard a car pull up, then footsteps. My heart raced. The door opened, and there he was, Daniel, thinner than I remembered, his eyes hollow. "Mom," he said, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't stand, didn't run to him. I just looked at him, my son, and said, "Sit down. We need to talk." He sat, avoiding my eyes. I laid out the evidence, every document, every lie. "This is what you did," I said, my voice steady but soft. "Not just to me, but to us." He tried to interrupt, to spin another story, but I held up a hand. "No more lies. Danny. Not here." For the first time, he was silent. His shoulders slumped. I saw the boy he'd been, buried under years of bad choices. I didn't know if I could reach him, but I was going to try. Daniel's silence filled the room, heavier than the dust that still lingered in the corners. I watched him, my son, sitting across from me, his hands fidgeting like they did when he was a child caught in a lie. But this wasn't a stolen cookie or a broken vase. This was our home, our legacy, gambled away on a losing hand. I wanted to shake him, to scream, but I held back. Anger wouldn't fix this. Only truth could. "Danny," I said, my voice low, "why didn't you come to me? Why did you lie?" He looked up, his eyes red, and for a moment, I saw the boy who used to run to me when he scraped his knee. I was ashamed. He whispered, "I thought I could fix it. Mom. I thought I could win it back." His voice cracked, and I felt a pang in my chest. But sympathy couldn't erase the damage. I pushed the stack of papers toward him, bank notices, casino records, the forged mortgage. "This is what you did," I said. "You didn't just lose the house. You broke trust. Mine, the neighbors, everyone's." He flinched, but I kept going. "You told people I was the one who lost it. Why?" He shook his head, muttering, "I didn't know what else to do. I was scared." Scared. The word hung between us, fragile and inadequate. I leaned forward. "You're not a child anymore, Daniel. You can't run from this." He looked away, his jaw tight. I could see the war in him. Part of him wanted to bolt, to keep running. But another part, The part one hoped was still my son. Was listening. I told him about the auction. About the dollar I'd paid to reclaim our home. His eyes widened. A mix of disbelief and shame. You did that? He asked. I nodded. Not for me. For us. For what this house means. The conversation stretched into the night. Daniel admitted things I wasn't ready to hear, debts that went beyond the house. Threats from men who didn't play games. Nights he'd spent sleeping in his car. Each word was a knife, cutting deeper into the image I'd held of him. But it also gave me clarity. He wasn't a villain, just a man lost in a storm of his own making. I wanted to save him, but I knew I couldn't. He had to save himself. I gave him a choice. Stay here, I said. Help me fix this house. Face what you've done. Or leave. And keep running. But if you leave, you're on your own. His face crumpled. And for a moment, I thought he'd cry. Instead, he nodded. I'll stay, he said, his voice barely audible. I didn't trust it yet, but it was a start. The next morning, Daniel was still there, asleep on the couch. I let him rest and went to work. The house needed more than cleaning. No, it needed life. I called in favors, rallied neighbors, and we started rebuilding. Daniel helped, tentatively at first, hauling debris and painting walls. The neighbors watched him, wary, but they saw me watching too. I wasn't blind to his past, but I was giving him a chance to make it right. Days turned into weeks. Daniel worked beside me, quiet but steady. I saw glimpses of the boy he'd been, his quick hands, his knack for fixing things. But I also saw the weight he carried. One evening, as we sanded the porch railing, he spoke. I didn't mean to hurt you, Mom, he said. I couldn't stop. I put down my sandpaper. I know, I said. But you can stop now. You can choose. He nodded. And for the first time, I saw something like resolve in his eyes. But trust is hard to rebuild. The neighbors still whispered, and I caught Daniel sneaking glances at his phone, as if old habits were calling. I knew this wasn't over. The house was coming back to life. But Daniel's battle was just beginning. I kept the evidence, Stoney's testimony, the casino records locked away, not as a threat, but as a reminder. If he slipped, I'd be ready. Not to punish him, but to pull him back. The house was starting to breathe again. The windows gleamed. The porch no longer sagged. And the garden, once choked with weeds, bloomed with marigolds I'd planted with neighbors' help. But the real work was in Daniel. He was trying harder than I expected, but addiction is a shadow that doesn't fade easily. I watched him closely, not out of distrust, but out of love. I'd lost my home once. I wasn't going to lose my son twice. Daniel threw himself into the repairs, as if each nail he hammered could mend the past. He fixed the leaky roof, repainted the living room, even rebuilt the old swing in the backyard where he used to play. The neighbors noticed. Some softened, offering him tools or a cold drink. Others kept their distance, their eyes saying what their words didn't prove it. I understood. Trust is earned, not given. One afternoon, as we worked on the kitchen cabinets, Daniel spoke up. Mom, why didn't you give up on me? His voice was raw, like he'd been holding the question in for weeks. I set down my screwdriver. Because you're my son, I said simply. And because I believe you can be better than your mistakes. He looked away, but I saw the tears. For the first time, I felt hope, not just for the house, but for him. But hope is fragile. One night, I caught Daniel on the phone, his voice low, tense. I'm done with that, Mike, he said. I can't. He hung up, but I saw the fear in his eyes. I didn't ask who Mike was. I didn't need to. The past was knocking, and Daniel was wavering. I sat him down that night and told him about my own struggles, how I'd fought to keep the house, how I'd faced the community's judgment, how I'd learned to stand tall at 70 when I wanted to crumble. You're not alone in this, I said, but you have to fight, too. He nodded. But the next day, he was gone. No note. No explanation, just an empty couch and a half-finished paint job. My heart sank. But I wasn't surprised. Addiction doesn't let go easily. I called Carl, the investigator. He found Daniel at a casino 2 hours away, back at the tables. I could have gone to him, dragged him home, but I knew it wouldn't work. He had to choose this for himself. I kept working on the house, pouring my grief into every task. The neighbors rallied around me, their support a quiet strength. They didn't ask about Daniel, but I saw the questions in their eyes. I didn't have answers. All I had was the house, standing strong again, and the hope that Daniel would find his way back. Weeks later, he did. He showed up at dawn, his clothes wrinkled, his face gaunt. I messed up, Mom, he said, his voice breaking. I tried to win it all back, and I lost again. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just opened the door. Come in, I said. But this is your last chance. He nodded, and I saw something new in his eyes, not just shame, but determination. We started over. I got him into a program, a local group for gambling addicts. He went to meetings, reluctant at first, but he kept going. I went with him sometimes, listening to stories that echoed his own. It wasn't easy. There were days he snapped at me, days he wanted to run. But he stayed. And slowly, the house wasn't the only thing coming back to life. The community watched, skeptical but curious. I invited them to a barbecue, a small celebration of the house's revival. Daniel helped cook, his hands steady as he flipped burgers. People talked to him, not with warmth, but with respect. He was trying, and they saw it. I saw it too. The road was long, but we were on it together. The barbecue was a turning point, not just for Daniel, but for me. The backyard hummed with voices, laughter, the clink of glasses. Neighbors who'd once looked at me with pity now raised their drinks in a toast to the house and to us. Daniel stood beside me, quieter than usual, but there was a light in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. He wasn't fixed, not by a long shot, but he was fighting. And that was enough for now. I watched him move through the crowd, offering a shy smile to old friends, answering their cautious questions. He didn't hide from the truth anymore. When someone asked about the house, he said, I messed up. Mom saved it. His honesty caught people off guard, but it also earned their respect. I felt a swell of pride, tempered by caution. I knew how fragile recovery could be. The house was nearly whole again. New curtains hung in the windows. The floors gleamed, and the fireplace crackled with life. But it wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about Daniel, about giving him a chance to rebuild himself. I started small traditions, Sunday dinners, game nights to remind him what home meant. He joined in, sometimes hesitant, but always there. Each moment felt like a brick laid in a new foundation. One evening, as we sat on the porch, Daniel opened up. I keep thinking about Dad, he said. He'd be so disappointed in me. I took his hand. Your father loved you, Danny. He'd be proud you're trying. He shook his head. I don't deserve it. I squeezed his hand tighter. None of us deserve grace. But we get it anyway. That's what family is. He didn't reply, but he stayed there, watching the stars with me. And that was enough. The past wasn't done with us, though. Carl called one morning with news. One of Daniel's old creditors was looking for him, a man named Vince, with a reputation for not letting go. I didn't tell Daniel right away. I didn't want to scare him off. Instead, I met with Vince myself. He was younger than I expected, slick and sharp-eyed, but I wasn't intimidated. I'd faced worse. Daniel's done with that life, I told him, my voice firm. You come near him. You deal with me. Vince laughed, but I saw the flicker of doubt in his eyes. I wasn't just an old woman. I was a mother protecting her son. I told Daniel about Vince later, not to scare him, but to prepare him. You can't run from this, I said, but you don't have to face it alone. He nodded, his jaw set. The next day, he went to his group meeting and came back with a plan. He'd work, save money, pay off his debts slowly. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. He got a job at a local hardware store, restocking shelves, fixing displays. It was humble work, but he showed up every day. The community started to shift. People stopped whispering about Daniel and started talking to him. Mrs. Larson, who'd lost her own son to addiction years ago, brought him homemade cookies one day. Keep going, kid, she said. Daniel blushed, mumbling a thank you. I saw the change in him, not just in his actions, but in his heart. He was starting to believe he could be more than his mistakes. But I wasn't naive. I kept the evidence, the papers that proved what he'd done, locked in a safe. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I knew the world could be cruel. If he slipped, if the past came calling, I'd be ready to protect him and to hold him accountable. The house was ours again, but it was more than a home now. It was a promise, a second chance, a testament to what love and resilience could do. Winter came, and the house stood strong against the cold. The roof held, the walls were warm, and the garden slept under a blanket of snow. Daniel was still with me, still fighting. He'd been at the hardware store for months. His paycheck small but steady. Each one felt like a victory, a step away from the tables that had nearly destroyed him. I watched him grow, not into the boy he'd been, but into a man I was starting to know again. One evening, as we decorated the house for Christmas, Daniel handed me a small envelope. Inside was $500, his first payment toward his debts. It's not much, he said, but it's a start. I hugged him, my eyes wet. It's everything, I said. He smiled, a real smile, the kind I hadn't seen since he was a child. We hung lights together that night, the house glowing against the dark, a beacon of hope. The community embraced us fully now. Neighbors stopped by with gifts, cookies, scarves, stories. They saw Daniel's effort, his quiet determination. At a town meeting, I shared our story, not to shame him, but to show what redemption looked like. Daniel stood beside me, his head high. I lost more than a house, he said to the crowd. I lost myself, but I'm finding my way back. The room was silent, then erupted in applause. I saw tears in Mrs. Larson's eyes, pride in others. They weren't just clapping for Daniel. They were clapping for all of us. Vince, the creditor, didn't come back. I'd made it clear he wasn't welcome, and Daniel's steady payments showed he was serious. But I kept my guard up, the evidence still locked away. Not because I doubted Daniel, but because I knew life could be unpredictable. The house was a symbol now, not just of our past, but of what we could overcome. I'd bought it back for $1, but its real cost was years of pain, trust, and resilience. Daniel started helping others, volunteering at his support group, sharing his story. He wasn't perfect. There were days he struggled, Days he snapped or withdrew. But he always came back. Always chose to stay. One night, as we sat by the fire, he said, "Mom, I don't know if I'll ever make this right. But I'm going to try. Every day." I took his hand. "That's all I've ever wanted," I said. The house on Maple Street was whole again, filled with new memories. We hosted a neighborhood party that spring, the backyard alive with laughter and music. Daniel played catch with a neighbor's kid, his laugh echoing like Robert's used to. I watched from the porch, my heart full. I'd lost so much years. Trust. The illusion of who I thought my son was. But I'd gained something too, a deeper love, forged in truth and second chances. I don't know what the future holds. Daniel's journey isn't over, and neither is mine. But as I look at the house, its walls strong, its heart beating, I know we're home. Not just in the house, but in each other. I bought it back for $1, but I reclaimed something priceless, my son, myself, and the belief that no loss is final if you're willing to fight for what matters.